Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Bethel. As you can tell from the big smile on my face, I'm super excited about this video. So 3 months ago, I started this thing on my channel called Sew with Kizaj, and we're done with the skirt section. We're done with like the basic information section, and now we're about to dive into the blouse section, which is where like 90% of all sewing questions come from. So that's supposed to be lesson 9, how to sew a basic blouse. But before I show you guys lesson 9, I wanted to go ahead and show you guys how to draft a basic bodice, because I believe showing you guys the basics of drafting, like everything you need, is going to open you to a whole new world of making blouses. If you're a beginner, this is going to like make your life so much more easy. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to draft a basic bodice. Like I said, this basic bodice is going to be the door into making blouses, dresses. It's going to make your life so easy if you actually understand. So now from this basic bodice, I want you guys to ask all the questions you have, so that way when I go into making the blouse, you guys understand everything. If it's your first time seeing me and you haven't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so and turn on the post notification so you don't miss when I post anything in my Sew with Kizaj series or any videos at all, because I also post other random stuff. I don't want you to miss any of those. So we also have a Telegram support chime. I have cats too, but we also have a Telegram support chime that basically answers questions. If you have any question that you don't want to ask on YouTube, you can go on there and ask it. It's not just me there, it's other like professionals in the field, so it's like a good resource for you. If you end up liking the video, give it a thumbs up. It's going to help my video reach other people and, you know, put me up there in the social media thingy. But anyhow, I appreciate you guys clicking on this video. Let's dive into the video. Okay, so these are the items I've been needing: my marker, my French curve, my ruler, my scissors, tape, pin cushion, and my brown paper. Okay, so this is what I'll be showing you guys how to achieve. You guys will not believe what happened. I had finished drafting this only to realize I was not recording, so let's do it all over again. First off, I cut out my brown paper to not be too much, so that way it's not too much stuff to work with. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start taking our lengthwise measurements. So first, let's go ahead and take from our shoulder to our bust point. So the shoulder to the bust point, if you've watched my how to take a body measurement video, as you know, should be the shoulder to the pointiest part of the bust, which is usually where the nipple is. So my shoulder to my bust point is 10, and I'm going to mark it there. Now this one is not constant when you're measuring it. It differs for everybody with different body shapes. So now just let me rule a line there. And call it bust point, BP. So now the next thing is going to be the waistline. So now the waistline for everybody usually is between, in my sewing career, for how many years I've been sewing, it's usually between 15 and 17 inches. For regular body types, usually around 17 inches. But for today, I'm going to do something midpoint, which is going to be 16. So that way, you know, it's still going to work fine if I use any of these, because that's the most curvy part of the waist, and it's not just like one point. It's around this point that's the most curvy. So if you want to go ahead and measure on your clients, feel free to do so too. But usually the half length is between 15 to 17. I personally still measure it out on my clients. So I measured mine at 16, and then I'm going to draw a straight line here too. So it's called the waistline or the half length, but let me go ahead and call it the waistline for the purpose of this practical. So next thing I'm going to do is to measure my hip line. Now the hip line is usually 23 inches from the top or 8 inches from the waist. So let's do 8 inches from the waist. So I'm going to draw my straight line here and call this the hip line. So now that's it for our lengthwise measurement. So now to cut out the neck, the basic neck measurement is going to be 3 by 3 inches. So 3 from the top to 3 from the center front. Okay, so before I come back to this, let me go ahead and mark this as our center front. So whenever we're cutting out the center front on the actual piece of clothing, it's called the center front because that's like the center of the front part of the body. That part is usually closed. So if we're going to like cut this out on actual fabric, this is going to be folded into 2, so that way we can have our center front, which is sealed closed. So now let's come back to our neck. So from the center front is going to be 3 inches, and then from the top is going to be 3 inches down too. So if you go ahead and draw this in, if you want to use your free hand, feel free to. I normally use my free hand, but for the purpose of this practical, I'll be using the French curve, just in case anybody's working with French curve. Okay, so now this is going to be my neckline. Now the next thing I'm going to measure is my shoulder. So now the shoulder measurement is not like constant for everybody. It differs, but in my sewing career, I've seen it range from 14 to 16 inches for women. That is basically what I've seen, between 14 inches and 16 inches. I haven't really seen it go like higher or lower than that. That's usually what I've seen. So mine is actually 14 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and divide that by 2, because you know it's just like a straight measurement, not around the body. So divide 14 inches by 2 to give us 7. So I'm going to mark my armhole at that 7 inch. So I'm going to mark it right here, like so. So now from that 7 inch, if you look at your body, you're going to see that your shoulder is not just like standing on its own. There's a slope to your shoulder. So to give allowance for that slope, I'm going to go ahead and measure 1 inch downwards from here. So just take my ruler and measure 1 inch here, like so. So now I'm going to connect this 1 inch that I just marked down to my neckline right here. So that should give me my shoulder slant. So now next thing I'm just going to go ahead and extend this line to, you know, anywhere. It doesn't really matter. I'm just extending the line. I'm just extending and stop right there. So now let's go ahead and start doing our round body measurement. So I'm going to take my bust measurement on my bust point, because that's, like, you know, like I mentioned, the biggest part of the bust. So my bust measures 33 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and divide 33 inches by 4. The reason I'm dividing by 4 is because this measurement goes round the body. If you want to understand more about like how to divide this stuff, go ahead and watch my video on how to divide body measurement, so you know what we're dividing and why we're dividing it by that. So that's a more detailed video on that. So divide my bust by 4, 8 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and mark that right here. So now I'm going to come to my waistline and measure my waist. My waist is around 25 inches. So I'm going to divide my waist by 4 again, because it goes around the body. 6 1/4. I'm not just going to mark my 6 1/4. I'm going to add 1 inch allowance, because the waist is where we're going to make our fitting. So we're going to add a dart to the waist. So instead of 6 1/4, I'm going to go ahead and measure 7 1/4 to give that allowance for that. That's my 7 1/4. So let me go ahead and join my bust point to my waistline, so that way you guys can start seeing, like, you know, it forming. So again, the waist is the only part I'm adding an allowance to, and that's because of the dart. So now let's go ahead and measure our hip. So on our hip line, we're going to measure our hip. My hip is 35. So again, I'm going to divide 35 by 4, because it goes round the body. It's 8 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 8 3/4 mark right here, and then mark it. So now I'm going to connect these two together, like so. I'm going to connect my waistline to my hip line. Okay, this right here is what it should look like at this point. So please note that this is a basic body. What we're trying to do is to contour it to the body, so that way it fits. So if you're looking at your body, your waist is not like just like a sharp inside thing. So we have to smooth this out, like so. Just use your French curve and just smooth it, so it's a more smooth curve. We're also going to do that to the hip line. The hip line doesn't really need it too much, but we're going to go ahead and just like smooth this a little bit, so it's not just, yeah, you know, like this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure for our armhole. So the armhole length everybody has a different way of measuring the armhole length, but normally what I do is I've come to realize that sometimes the shoulder measurement, you can also use it for the armhole measurement, but just add like maybe half or 1 inch to it. Now my shoulder measurement is 7. I use 7 1/2, and it's going to work perfect for me. Or what you could do is you could measure the armhole on the person if you're comfortable, and if your client is comfortable with that, you can measure the armhole. When I measure my armhole, I get at around 14 15, which also brings like 7 1/2. So either way, some people multiply the bust by something and divide the bust by something. That's just like too much wahala for me, so I don't even do that. So my armhole dropping, I'm going to do it at 7 1/2 right here, like so. Okay, so now from that 7 1/2 mark, I'm just going to extend it like this. Okay, so now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just connect my bust point here. So notice I'm not doing it straight though. Notice I'm putting this line, so that way it's like a smooth transition from the waist to the armhole, like this. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the midpoint from the top of my armhole to the bottom of my arm. I'm going to find the midpoint, and then I'm going to mark something there. So my midpoint should be around 3.5 or 3.25, because I use 7.5. So 3.25 should be my midpoint right here. So this is my midpoint right here. So now what I'm going to do at this midpoint is I'm going to take in 1/2 inch here. So this taking in this 1/2 inch is not compulsory, but it helps your bodice to fit more, and it gives you more allowance for moving in the front, and it eliminates that bulk. When you see clothes that there's bulk on the, around the bust armhole side, it eliminates that bulk to an extent. Now next I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, connect this to this and this to this to form my armhole. If it's possible that your French curve can do it in one go for it, but mine can't, so I have to like break it up. French curve for this Pascal say. Okay, so this is what my armhole looks like. So now this is basically what your body should look like at this point, but we're missing just one thing, and that's the dart. For the dart, the one measurement we need is going to be our nipple to nipple, or what we call the bust span. So my nipple to nipple is around 6.5. So just in case you forget to take this measurement on your client, the generalized nipple to nipple is going to be 8 inches. Even if the person's bust is big or small, you really can't go wrong with that 8 inches. So if you forget to take the measurement, you're safe. You can use 8 inches. That's like the standard. So for this one, I'm going to use 7. So that's going to be 3.5. Or I can use 6 too. Both usually look good on me. I'm going to go ahead and measure my 3.5 here, like this. Measure my 3.5 here too on my bust point, and I measure my 3.5 on my hip line as well. So now I'm going to connect all of these together. So now the next thing I'm going to do, remember that 1 inch we added here, right? Now we're going to eliminate that 1 inch by making it into a dart here. So now I'm going to take 1/2 inch from the left side like so, and then take 1/2 inch from the right side like so. So 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here. Now we have 1 inch lying in the middle, which we are going to sew inside. So at the end of the day, our waist comes back to what it's supposed to be. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop. So from my bust point, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch downward, because we don't want our dart to actually reach our bust point, because it ends up looking weird, and sometimes end up like pressing your bust down. So we want to avoid our dart reaching our bust point, so I'm going to drop it by 1/2 inch. So now that's where our dart's going to start. So our dart's going to end 2 inches before that hip line. So I'm going to go ahead 2 inches for the hip line. I'm just measuring this right here where the dart ends. But normally, if you don't want to measure it like that, it's usually 6 inches from the waistline. So 2 inches from the hip line going up, or 6 inches from the waistline coming down. Anything that works for you is going to give you the same thing. Now next I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect this to this like so. So I'm connecting my 1/2 inch taken from this side to 1/2 inch below my bust point on this side like this. I'm doing the same thing on this side like this. I'm going to do the same thing to my hip, measure it like this and like this. So this is what our dart should look like. It's basically like a diamond shape type thingy. So now whenever I sew this, I'm going to sew it inside like this. I'm going to sew it inside like this. So when I sew it, obviously I'm already starting to have my shape for my bust. So this right here is how to draft the front part of the body. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this and show you guys how to draft the back part. So now when cutting it, I'm not going to cut out this part just yet, because I want to show you guys how to use the front part to draft the back part. So take note of that. I'm just cutting on the line. To cut my back, I'm basically using my front and I'm just mirroring it with a few minor adjustments to make the back. Now the first thing I want you guys to note is, personally, I almost always forget. If I don't include my zip allowance in my pattern, I'll probably forget that there's something called the zipper. So I'll go ahead and include my zip allowance right now. Now, zip allowance varies for everybody. I am very comfortable using 1.5 as my zip allowance because that's what works for me. I was taught to use 2, but I found out it was too big. If you want to use 1, you can even use 1. 1 is even better than 1.5. But I like to do 1.5 because I end up sewing it in, so it ends up becoming like 1 inch. And also, if you haven't watched my video on how to fix zippers, please do so after this video, so that way you can see the various ways to fix zippers. So I'm bringing that up because if I was going to fix an invisible zipper on this, I'll be using 1/2 inch, not 1 inch. So now I'm going to name this this is going to be my center back right here. So now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my front piece and place my center front to align with that line right there. So this space that you're seeing right here is a zip allowance, and it's not going to affect our measurements. We are starting our measurement from this line because this is basically like non-existent. So now if you want, you can use tape to hold this down, but I don't have any tape nearby, so I'm just going to use my pin to hold this down like this. Okay, so now the few things that are different from the front and the back is that the back neckline is slightly higher. It's going to be dropped by 1 inch, and then the back armhole does not have this fitting thing we did here with 1/2 inch, and also the back dart does not stop here. It goes all the way to the armhole. That's just a few things that are different. So let's start with the main thing, which is our neckline. So again, the neckline is going to be dropped by 1 inch, not 3 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it by 1 inch. So right here, like this. So I'm just going to take my French curve and connect this to this. So that's my back neckline. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just want to mark where my waist is because I'll need it. On this side, on this side. Okay. So now for my back armhole, all I'm doing is I'm just cutting kind of like right on this line that I had made in the beginning, right here. So just cutting it like this. It's right on that initial line that we had drawn. Okay, so now I'm going to cut out my front armhole so that you guys can see the difference. So I'm only cutting the front piece now before you can cut the front and the back together. Okay, so see my front armhole right here, and this is my back armhole, just that 1/2 inch difference. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out the rest of the things. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer my waist measurement here. This was where my waist was here. So the dart ends the same place. So 2 inches from my hip line, like so. I like my dart to start to line up with where my armhole is. So that's going to be like slightly around here. So I'm just going to draw a straight line right here like this. So now that's where my dart's going to start from for the back. Now next I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my 3.5 inches, which is my nipple to nipple. It's going to be the same for the front and the back. Whatever I use for the front, for your darts, use it at the back too. So that's my 3.5. Same thing I do at the front, marking it here, here, and here, and then drawing a straight line to connect it. Like I said, the only difference between the back dart and the front dart is that the back dart is longer, just because we're not stopping at the plus point. So now I'm going to go ahead and then the same thing I did in the front, mark my 1/2 inch to the left, that 1/2 inch to the right, and then I'm going to same thing again, connect this like so. So this right here, guys, is what your basic bodice should look like, and this is how to draft a basic bodice. From here now, you can literally manipulate this into a dress. You can actually manipulate this into like a dress, or if you want a crop top, it's going to stop here. If you want a skirt, it's going to start from here. Basically, with this now, you have the keys to do anything you want to do with sewing. Okay guys, so that's the end of this video. I hope my method was super easy to understand, and the way I delivered it was, something that you pick up, because I really want you guys to understand these basic bodies. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me: Telegram, the comment section. Just let me know. I really want you guys to understand this. So if you have any questions, please ask. If you're yet to do that, give this video a thumbs up please, and subscribe if you haven't. So now this, like I said, is just the basis for like literally everything. So my next video in this series is going to be how to make a simple top, and we're going to be using this pattern that I drafted today so that you guys can see how we can convert a simple bodice to like a top or like something else. But I'm super excited for the future. Make sure to join our train if you haven't, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye.